Have you ever sat on your porch at dusk, a glass of sweet tea in hand, and wondered where the years went? Hey there, my dear friends. I'm Eva, 65 years young, calling you from my cozy corner in Eufaula, Alabama, where the lake shimmers and the crickets sing. I'm so glad you're here, sharing this moment with me, like old friends catching up over coffee. How's your heart holding up these days? I've got a story to tell, one that's close to my soul, and I'll be stepping into the shoes of Eleanor Ellie Marie Hawthorne, a woman whose strength will touch you deep. Through her, I'll share a tale of betrayal, resilience, and finding light in the darkest times. So, grab a seat, hit that subscribe button to join our little circle, and let's dive into Ellie's world together. I'm 70 years old, standing on a gravel road in the middle of nowhere, with a small suitcase in my hand and a heart that feels like it's been torn clean in two. The air is cool, scented with spring grass and the faint promise of rain, but it does nothing to soothe the ache in my chest. County Road 14 stretches out before me, a lonely ribbon of dirt and stone cutting through the fields of Willow Creek. Oregon, in the distance, the Cascade Mountains loom, their peaks dusted with the last of winter's snow. I can still see the black SUV disappearing over the hill, the dust cloud trailing behind it like a fading memory. My son, Daniel, was driving. My daughter-in-law, Claire, sat beside him, her voice cold as the April wind when she leaned out the window and said, "You'll be fine, Mom. There's a gas station a few miles up. You've always been tough, tough." That word stings more than the gravel biting into my soles through my worn flats. I've been tough my whole life, tough enough to build a pear orchard from nothing with my husband, James, tough enough to raise a son through lean years, tough enough to watch cancer take James from me just 6 weeks ago. But this is a different kind of hurt, the kind that comes from the people you love most turning their backs on you. I clutch the wool scarf James gave me years ago, its soft fibers still carrying a hint of his aftershave, and I wonder how it came to this. How did the family I poured my soul into end up leaving me here? Like a piece of luggage they no longer needed, I don't cry. Not yet, maybe not ever. Tears won't bring back the life I thought I had, and they won't save the Hawthorne family farms. The pear orchard James and I built from a patch of scrubland back in 1978. That's what this is about. Isn't it the orchard, the land, the $8 million some big-shot developer, Cascade Resorts, promised Daniel and Claire if they could sell it out from under me? They thought they could do it with a forged will, a piece of paper they claimed was James's last wish. But I know my husband's handwriting, the way his letters looped when he was tired, the way his signature shook in those final months. That paper was a lie, just like the smiles Claire gave me after James's funeral. I take a step forward, then another, my knees aching with every movement. I'm not as spry as I used to be, not with arthritis creeping into my joints, but I've never let pain stop me before. The suitcase is light. Claire packed it for me, probably in a hurry, with a few blouses, my medications, and a pair of slippers I never wear. They didn't even give me my phone, just this bag, and a vague direction to a gas station a few miles up. I look down the road, squinting against the late afternoon sun, and start walking. Each step feels like a choice, a refusal to let them win. James's voice echoes in my mind. "Steady as ever, Ellie. You're stronger than you know." I hold on to that, letting it anchor me as the wind tugs at my scarf. I think back to a night in 1985 when Daniel was 6 and burning with fever. I sat by his bed in our old farmhouse, the kitchen clock ticking past midnight, wiping his forehead with a cool cloth and singing, "Hush, little baby," until my voice cracked. James was out in the orchard, checking the trees after a frost scare, and I was alone with my boy, praying the fever would break. It did, just before dawn, and when Daniel opened his eyes and smiled, I felt like I could conquer anything. That boy, my boy, grew up to be a man who drove away and left me here. How does a mother's love turn into this? I don't have an answer. But the question burns hotter than the ache in my legs. The road is quiet, save for the rustle of grass and the occasional call of a red-winged blackbird. Willow Creek is a small town, the kind where folks wave from their pickups and know your name at the farmer's market. It's the kind of place where James and I built a life, where our pear orchard became a cornerstone of the community. We didn't just grow fruit, we grew trust, donating baskets of pears to the local schools, hosting harvest festivals for the kids, teaching the Wilson boys how to prune trees when they needed summer work. But Claire never saw that. To her, the orchard was just dirt and trees, a relic of a life she couldn't wait to leave behind. She wanted the money, the kind of money that buys condos in Portland and fancy cars that don't belong on gravel roads. I remember the day Claire came into our lives, back in 2015 when Daniel brought her home to meet us. She was all golden hair and bright smiles, her nails painted a glossy pink, her phone never far from her hand. She called herself an influencer, whatever that means, and talked about her brand while James and I nodded politely over dinner. I tried to like her, for Daniel's sake. I baked her favorite lemon bars even though she barely touched them. And I listened to her stories about Portland, a city I've only visited a handful of times. But there was always a distance, a way she looked at our farmhouse like it was a museum piece. "It's so rustic," she'd say, her smile tight, and I'd swallow the hurt and tell myself she'd come around. She didn't. And now, here I am, walking a road I never thought I'd travel alone. The sun is dipping lower, casting long shadows across the fields, and I'm still a good mile from Miller's Gas and Grocery. My feet are blistered. My back aches, but I keep going. I think about James, about the way he'd sit on the porch in his flannel shirt, sipping coffee and watching the orchard come alive each spring. He'd be heartbroken to know what Daniel and Claire are trying to do selling the land we poured our lives into, turning it into some glossy resort for rich folks from the city. I can almost hear him now. His voice soft but firm. "Ellie, don't let them take what's ours." I stop for a moment, catching my breath, and look at the suitcase in my hand. It's not much, but it's mine, and so is the orchard. I think about the 10 acres I own outright, bought in my maiden name before James and I married, back when we were just dreaming of a life together. Those acres hold the water rights, the lifeblood of any development in this part of Oregon. Claire and Daniel don't know about them. They think they've got it all figured out, but they've underestimated me. I'm not just a mother or a widow. I'm Eleanor Marie Hawthorne, and I've spent 40 years learning every inch of this land, every contract, every trick it takes to keep an orchard alive. They'll learn that soon enough. The gas station comes into view, a small building with a faded sign and a single pump. Ray Miller's pickup is parked out front, and I feel a flicker of relief. Ray's family has run this place for 3 generations, just like James and I built our orchard. He's a good man, the kind who'd give you the shirt off his back if you needed it. I push open the door, the bell jingling softly, and Ray looks up from behind the counter, his weathered face creasing with concern. "Ellie, good Lord, you okay?" he says, wiping his hands on his apron. "You look like you've walked a marathon." I manage a small smile, though it feels brittle. Forgot my phone at home. "Ray, can I borrow yours for a quick call?" He doesn't ask questions, just hands me the old corded phone from behind the counter. "Take your time." "Ellie, you need anything else? Water, coffee?" "I'm fine." "Ray, thank you. My voice is steadier than I feel." I dial Henry Caldwell's number, my fingers trembling slightly. Henry's been our family lawyer for 30 years, a friend of James's since their high school days. If anyone can help me, it's him. Henry Caldwell. His voice comes through, calm and familiar. Henry, it's Ellie, I say, gripping the receiver. I need you. Daniel and Claire. They've done something I can't forgive. There's a pause, then Henry's voice sharpens. Where are you, Ellie? What's happened? I'm at Miller's Gas and Grocery. They left me, Henry, on County Road from 14 with nothing but a suitcase. They're trying to sell the orchard, with a will that's not James's. I need your help. Stay there, he says, his tone all business now. I'm coming to get you. We'll sort this out. Ellie, I promise. I hang up, thanking Ray as I slide the phone back across the counter. He presses a bottle of water into my hands, refusing my offer to pay. It's on the house, Ellie. You just take care of yourself. Here I nod, stepping outside to wait for Henry. The sun is nearly gone now, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. I sit on the bench by the gas station, the suitcase at my feet, and let my mind wander back to the orchard. I can see it so clearly, the rows of pear trees, their branches heavy with fruit in the summer. The way the morning light filters through the leaves. That land is more than a business. It's a promise James and I made to each other, to our community, to the future. I won't let it go, not without a fight. Henry's old sedan pulls up 20 minutes later, and I climb in, the leather seats warm against my chilled skin. We're going to my office, he says, glancing at me with worry in his eyes. You tell me everything, Ellie, and we'll figure out what to do. As we drive through Willow Creek, past the farmer's market and the little church where James and I used to go on Easter, I feel a spark of resolve ignite inside me. Claire and Daniel think I'm weak, just an old woman clinging to the past. They're wrong. I've spent my life nurturing this land, this family, and I know how to protect what's mine, sitting in Henry's office, surrounded by stacks of legal books and the faint smell of coffee. I look him in the eye and say, they think they've won. Henry, but I'm just getting started. How does a mother stand up when her own son turns his back? How does a widow fight for the legacy her husband left behind? I don't have all the answers yet, but I know one thing: I'm not done, not by a long shot. If this story has touched your heart, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What would you do if you were standing on that road with nothing but a suitcase and a dream to hold on to? Hit that subscribe button to follow my journey, because this is only the beginning, and there's so much more to tell. It's funny how a single moment can unravel everything you thought you knew about your life. Just yesterday, I was standing on County Road 14, watching my son and his wife drive away, leaving me with nothing but a suitcase and a heart full of questions. Now, I'm sitting in Henry Caldwell's law office, the faint smell of old books and coffee grounding me as I try to piece together how it all went so wrong. Henry's across from me, his glasses perched on his nose, flipping through papers with a frown that says he's as mad about this as I am. But before I tell him everything and before I lay out the betrayal that brought me here, I need to go back, to explain what the Hawthorne family farms means, what it cost me, and how the family I loved more than anything turned into strangers. Willow Creek, Oregon, is the kind of place where time moves a little slower, where folks still wave from their porches and the farmer's market smells like fresh apples and homemade jam. It's a small town nestled in the shadow of the Cascade Mountains, with fields that turn golden in the fall and pear orchards that bloom like clouds of white every spring. Our orchard, the Hawthorne family farms, sits on the edge of town. 15 acres of pear trees that James and I turned from a patch of weeds into something beautiful. It's not just a business, it's a promise we made to each other, to this town, to the future. Every summer, we'd load baskets of pears onto our old pickup and drive them to the schools, the food bank, the church. Kids would run up, their hands sticky with juice, and I'd feel like we were doing something right, something that mattered. I can still see the farmhouse in my mind, clear as day, the white clapboard siding, a little weathered but sturdy, the front porch with James's rocking chair, the kitchen where I'd bake blueberry pies on Sunday mornings. That kitchen was the heart of our home, with its worn oak table and the window that looked out over the orchard. I'd stand there, stirring pancake batter, while James read the paper and Daniel played with his toy trucks on the floor. Those were the good years, the ones I hold on to when the nights get too quiet. But they're gone now, and I'm left wondering where I went wrong. It all started in 1978, when James and I were newlyweds with big dreams and not much else. I was 23, fresh out of college with a teaching certificate I never got to use. James had a vision of an orchard, a place where we could grow something real, something that would last. We bought those 15 acres with every penny we had, plus a loan that kept us up at night. I remember the first day we walked that land, the soil dry and cracked, the air thick with the buzz of cicadas. James took my hand and said, "Ellie, this is ours. We're going to make it bloom." And we did. Through years of sweat and worry, through droughts and frosts, and markets that didn't always pay fair. I gave up my dream of teaching to stand by him, to learn how to prune trees, balance books, negotiate with buyers. I didn't mind. Not really, because I believed in us, in what we were building. Daniel came along in 1979, our little miracle with his father's blue eyes and a laugh that could melt your heart. I'd carry him through the orchard in a sling, his tiny hands reaching for the leaves, while James explained how to spot blight or check for pests. Those were the days when I thought family was forever, when I thought love was enough to hold us together. But Daniel grew up, and somewhere along the way, he stopped seeing the orchard as home. He left for college at 18, saying Willow Creek was too small for his dreams. I let him go, thinking he'd come back, that he'd remember the mornings we spent picking pears together, the way James would hoist him onto his shoulders and call him my little farmer. Then came Claire. It was 2015 when Daniel brought her to the farmhouse, a city girl from Portland with golden hair and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She called herself an influencer, always snapping photos for her social media, talking about content and engagement, while I nodded and tried to keep up. I wanted to like her. For Daniel's sake, I baked her lemon bars, even though she barely ate them, and I listened to her stories about her latest business venture, a line of organic candles that went bust in 6 months. She'd laugh it off, but I could see the strain in Daniel's face, the way he'd cover her debts with money he didn't have. I should have seen the signs then, the way she looked at our farmhouse like it was a relic, the way she called the orchard cute but outdated. "Ellie, you must get so tired of all this," she said once, standing in my kitchen with her phone in hand. "Don't you ever want to, retire? Move somewhere nice?" I smiled, stirring a pot of soup on the stove. "This is nice. Claire, this is home." She didn't get it. To her, home was a condo in Portland. All glass and chrome, not a creaky farmhouse with a view of pear trees. I tried to be patient, to show her the beauty of what James and I had built. I invited her to the Harvest Festival, where the whole town gathered to pick fruit and dance under string lights. She came once, took a few photos, then left early, saying the dust was bad for her allergies. Daniel went with her, and I stood there alone, watching the kids run through the orchard, feeling a pang I couldn't name. Things got worse when James got sick. It was 2019 and the doctor's words hit like a hammer: pancreatic cancer. Advanced. 18 months. They said, maybe less. James took it with his usual quiet strength, but I could see the fear in his eyes, the way he'd stare out at the orchard like he was trying to memorize it. We didn't tell Daniel and Claire right away. James wanted to spare them, to let them live their lives a little longer without that shadow. I went along with it, though I knew better. I knew our son. Daniel was busy in Seattle, climbing the ladder at some real estate firm. always too tied up to visit. Claire was in Portland, launching one failed business after another, detox juices, yoga retreats, you name it, every few months. She'd call, her voice sweet as pie, asking for a little help to get her through. James would send the money, even when we couldn't spare it, because he loved Daniel and wanted to believe in Claire. I'd bite my tongue, stirring my coffee in that same kitchen, watching the orchard through the window and praying they'd come around. When we finally told them about James's cancer, they came home, but not the way I'd hoped. Daniel was distant, checking his phone during visits, talking about downsizing the orchard like it was just a line item on a spreadsheet. Claire was worse. She'd hug James, tears in her eyes, but I'd catch her whispering to Daniel about future plans when she thought I wasn't listening. I wanted to believe it was grief, that they were just scared of losing him, but deep down, I knew they were already counting the dollars they thought the orchard would bring. James passed 6 weeks ago, on a quiet March morning, with me by his fold. I held his hand as the light left his eyes, and I promised him I'd keep the orchard alive, no matter what. The funeral was small, just as he'd wanted, in the little church on Main Street. The town showed up Ray Miller, Maggie Olson, the Wilson boys, all the folks who'd known James as a man of his word. They brought casseroles, shared stories about how James helped save the Peterson farm during the recession, how he'd always hire local kids for summer work. I stood by his grave, the orchard blooming just beyond the hill, and I felt him with me, his strength in the roots of those trees. But Daniel and Claire, they didn't bring stories or tears. They brought questions about the will. It started the day after the funeral, in my kitchen, with the same oak table where we'd celebrated Daniel's birthdays. Claire sat across from me, her nails tapping on her phone, while Daniel sipped coffee and avoided my eyes. "Mom, we're just trying to be practical," he said, his voice clipped, like he was pitching to a client. "The medical bills must be piling up. Have you thought about selling the orchards, a lot for you to handle alone?" I looked at him, my boy, and saw a stranger in a pressed shirt. "This orchard is our life. Daniel, your father's life, you know that." Claire chimed in, her tone syrupy. "Ellie, we're worried about you. A retirement home would be so much easier. You'd have friends, activities. I have friends," I said, my voice sharper than I meant. "I have the orchard. This is my home." Daniel shifted in his seat, but Claire just smiled. That tight smile I'd come to know too well. "It's all of our home, Ellie. And Dad left the orchard to us. He wanted us to take care of you." That's when they showed me the will, a crisp document on Claire's monogrammed stationery, not the faded letterhead of Henry's firm. James's signature looked wrong, too steady, too perfect for a man whose hands shook from pain in his final days. I knew then they'd planned this, maybe even before James was gone. My heart sank, but I kept my face still. "I need time," I said, standing. "We'll talk tomorrow." There was no tomorrow, not the way I'd hoped. They packed my suitcase, told me we were visiting a retirement home, and drove me out to County Road 14 instead. And now, here I am, sitting in Henry's office, the weight of it all pressing down on me. I look at him, his eyes kind but fierce, and I know I'm not alone, not yet. "Ellie," Henry says, setting down his pen, "tell me everything, from the beginning." I take a deep breath, the smell of coffee and old wood steadying me. It started with the orchard, Henry, with James and me, and a dream we thought would last forever. The morning light filters through the lace curtains of Maggie Olson's cafe, casting soft patterns on the wooden floor. I'm sitting at a corner table, a mug of coffee warming my hands, the smell of fresh-baked cinnamon rolls wrapping around me like a hug. Maggie's place, the Rusty Spoon, is a cornerstone of Willow Creek, Oregon, a cozy spot where locals swap stories over pancakes and the jukebox plays Johnny Cash on quiet days. It's been 2 days since Daniel and Claire left me on County Road 14, 2 days since I walked 4 miles to Miller's Gas and Grocery with nothing but a suitcase and a fire in my chest. I'm not the same woman I was then, broken and betrayed. I'm Eleanor Marie Hawthorne, and I'm done letting my son and his wife take what James and I built. Maggie slides into the chair across from me, her apron dusted with flour, her grey curls pinned back with a clip shaped like a sunflower. She's been my friend since we were girls, the kind of friend who knows your heart without you saying a word. Ellie, honey, she says, her voice soft but firm. You look like you're carrying the weight of the world. You gonna tell me what's going on? Or do I have to pry it out of you? I manage a small smile, though it feels heavy. Maggie, it's a long story, but I need your help. Daniel and Claire, they're trying to sell the orchard. They forged James's will, and I pause, the words catching in my throat. They left me on the side of the road to get me out of the way. Maggie's eyes widen, her hand flying to her mouth. They what? Oh, Ellie, that's unthinkable. How could they do that to you? I shake my head, staring into my coffee. I don't know, Maggie. I keep asking myself where I went wrong, what I did to make them think I'm just an old woman they can push aside. But I'm not done yet. I'm going to fight for the orchard, for James, for everything we built. Maggie reaches across the table, squeezing my hand. And you won't fight alone, honey. You've got this town behind you. What do you need from me? Her words are like a lifeline, pulling me back from the loneliness that's been gnawing at me since James died. I take a deep breath and start to explain. Henry Caldwell, our family lawyer, picked me up from Miller's that night and brought me to his office. He listened as I poured out the story the forged will, the $8 million offer from Cascade Resorts, the way Claire's voice dripped with fake concern when she told me I'd be fine on that road. Henry's face grew darker with every word. And when I showed him the forged will, he shook his head. This isn't James's signature. Ellie, he said, I've got the real will in my safe, and it leaves everything to you. We can fight this, everything, the orchard, the farmhouse, the legacy James and I poured 40 years into. But there's more 10 acres of land I own outright, bought in my maiden name before we married, back when James and I were just dreaming of a future together. Those acres hold the water rights, the key to any development in this part of Oregon. Cascade Resorts can't build their fancy resort without them, and Claire and Daniel don't even know they exist. That's my ace in the hole, and I'm going to play it. I look at Maggie, her eyes fierce with determination. I need a place to stay for a bit. I say, just until I get my feet under me. And I need you to keep an ear out. Let me know what folks are saying about Daniel and Claire. They're still in town, and I need to know their next move. You got it, Maggie says, standing. My guest room's yours as long as you need it. And don't you worry about the gossip, I'll have the whole town's pulse by noon. I smile, a real one this time, and sip my coffee. Maggie's right, this town is my strength, just as much as the orchard. Willow Creek isn't just a place, it's a community, woven together by years of shared harvests, church suppers, and helping hands. James and I were part of that, and I'm counting on it now to pull me through. Later that morning, I meet Henry at his office on Main Street, a narrow Victorian with creaky stairs and a view of the farmer's market. The air smells of ink and old wood, and Henry's desk is piled with papers, a testament to his 30 years as Willow Creek's go-to lawyer. He's got the real will spread out in front of him, James's careful handwriting unmistakable even to my tired eyes. Ellie, he says, adjusting his glasses. This is airtight. James left the orchard, the house, everything to you. The forged will they showed you. It's a fraud, and I can prove it, but we need to move fast. If Daniel and Claire are meeting with Cascade Resorts, they'll try to push the sale through before we can stop them. I nod, my fingers tracing the edge of the will. What about my 10 acres? The ones in my maiden name? Henry's eyes light up. Smart, Ellie, real smart. Those water rights are gold. No developer can build without them. And they're yours, free and clear. We can use that to block the sale. Maybe even scare Cascade off for good. I feel a spark of hope, the first in days. What's our next step? We file an emergency injunction to freeze any sale. Henry says, scribbling notes, and we need evidence, bank records, emails, anything that shows what they're planning. I'll start digging, but you need to rally your allies. This town loves you and James. Use that. Allies. The word feels strange, like I'm planning a war instead of saving my home. But maybe that's what this is, a war for everything I hold dear. I think back to 1990 when James and I hosted our first harvest festival. The orchard was bursting with fruit, the air sweet with pears and cider, and the whole town turned out kids running through the trees. Maggie serving pie, Ray Miller playing his guitar. James stood on a hay bale, his arm around me, and said, "This is what we built, Ellie. Not just an orchard, but a family." I believed him then, and I want to believe it now, even if my real family has turned their backs. By afternoon, I'm sitting in the office of the Willow Creek Chronicle, across from Laura Bennett, a young reporter with sharp eyes and a notebook full of scribbles. Laura's barely 30, but she's got a fire in her that reminds me of myself at that age. She grew up in Willow Creek, went to college in Portland, and came back to tell the stories of her hometown. When I called her this morning, she didn't hesitate. "Mrs. Hawthorne, if what you're saying is true, this is big," she said. "I'm in." Now, she leans forward, pen poised. "Tell me everything. Mrs. Hawthorne, don't leave anything out." I take a deep breath, the smell of newsprint and coffee steadying me. "It's Ellie. Please. And it's not just about me. It's about the orchard, about what James and I built, about this town. Daniel and Claire are trying to sell it to Cascade Resorts, with a forged will. They left me on County Road 14 to keep me out of the way." Laura's pen freezes, her mouth dropping open. "They left you on the road, Ellie, that's awful, and illegal. We can use this, I don't want pity." I say, my voice firm. "I want the truth out there. Cascade Resorts has a history of bullying folks into selling old farmers, widows, people who can't fight back. If you dig into them, you'll find dirt. I know it." Laura nods, her eyes blazing. "I'll start with their public records, see what I can pull. If they're pressuring you, they've probably done it before. And Ellie, this story's going to hit hard. People love your orchard. They'll rally behind you." I hope she's right. The thought of the town reading about my family's betrayal makes my stomach twist. But I know it's the only way. Claire and Daniel think they can hide behind their fancy clothes and city ways. But Willow Creek doesn't forget its own. That evening, I'm back at Maggie's, sitting in her guest room with a quilt over my knees. The room is small, with a slanted ceiling and a window that looks out on the orchard in the distance. I can just make out the silhouette of the trees, their branches swaying in the spring breeze. Maggie's downstairs, closing up the cafe, and the faint clatter of dishes drifts up through the floorboards. I should feel safe here, surrounded by a friend's kindness, but the loneliness is still there, a weight that settles in my chest when the world goes quiet. I think about Daniel, about the boy who used to follow James through the orchard, asking 100 questions about pollination and pruning. I think about Claire, about the way she hugged me after James's funeral, her tears soaking my shoulder. Was any of it real, or was it all just a step in their plan to take the orchard? I close my eyes, and I'm back in my kitchen, the night after the funeral, when Claire and Daniel sat me down with that forged will. "Ellie, we're just trying to help," Claire said, her voice dripping with sweetness. Dad wanted us to take care of you. The orchard's too much for you now. I looked at Daniel, waiting for him to say something, anything, to defend the life his father loved. But he just stared at his coffee, his jaw tight. Mom, it's what Dad would have wanted. He mumbled. No, it's not, I said, my voice shaking. Your father loved this orchard. He'd never sell it for some resort. Claire's smile didn't waver. Things change. Ellie, we're just being practical. Practical. That word again, like a knife twisting in my gut. I stood, my hands gripping the back of a chair. I need time to think. We'll talk tomorrow. But tomorrow never came. They packed my suitcase, drove me out to that road, and left me there, now, sitting in Maggie's guest room. I feel that fire again. The one that kept me walking those 4 miles. I'm not just fighting for the orchard, I'm fighting for myself, for the woman I've always been, the one James believed in. I pull out a small notebook from my suitcase, one I used to jot down recipes and orchard notes. Now, it's a battle plan. I write down names Henry, Laura, Maggie, Thomas Reed, a lawyer friend of James's who knows real estate law. I list steps, file the injunction, freeze the orchard's accounts, get Laura's story out. It's not much, but it's a start, and for the first time in days, I feel like I'm moving forward. Maggie pokes her head in, a mug of tea in her hand. Ellie, you need to rest, she says, setting the tea on the nightstand. You're not going to win this fight if you're running on fumes. I'll rest when it's over, I say, but I take the tea, the warmth seeping into my hands. Maggie, do you think I'm doing the right thing, fighting them like this? Daniel's my son, and Claire, she's family, whether I like it or not. Maggie sits on the edge of the bed, her face soft but serious. Ellie, you raised Daniel to know right from wrong. What he and Claire did. That's on them, not you. You're not just fighting for the orchard, you're fighting for what's right. But don't let it eat you up. Honey, you've got to hold on to the good too, I nod, though the good feels far away right now. Thanks, Maggie, for everything. She pats my hand and heads downstairs, leaving me with my thoughts and the distant hum of the orchard. I look out the window, at the trees that have stood through 40 years of storms. They're still there, still blooming. And so am I. Claire and Daniel think they've won, but they don't know the strength of a woman who spent her life nurturing roots. I close my notebook, sip the tea, and whisper to the night, this isn't over. The air in Henry Caldwell's office feels thick, like the moment before a summer storm breaks. I'm sitting at the long oak table, my hands folded in my lap, the wool scarf James gave me draped over my shoulders. It's been 5 days since Daniel and Claire left me on County Road 14, 5 days since I walked those 4 miles to Miller's Gas and Grocery with a fire in my chest. Now, that fire is a steady flame, fueled by the plan I've built with Henry, Maggie, Laura, and Thomas Reed, across from me. Henry adjusts his glasses, his face calm but sharp, like a man who's seen battles and knows how to win them. To my left, Thomas, James's old friend and a real estate lawyer from Portland, flips through a stack of documents, his pen marking pages with precise strokes. We're ready. The door opens, and there they are, Daniel and Claire, stepping into the room like they're walking into a boardroom instead of a reckoning. Daniel's suit is wrinkled, his face unshaven, a far cry from the polished real estate broker he's tried to be. Claire's hair is pulled back in a messy ponytail, her mascara smudged, but she still carries herself with that city girl swagger, like she's above all this. They don't look at me, not yet, and I'm glad. I need a moment to steady myself, to remember the woman I am, not just a mother, not just a widow, but Eleanor Marie Hawthorne, who built an orchard from nothing and isn't about to let it go. Henry gestures to the chairs across the table. Sit, he says, his voice even but firm. We have a lot to discuss. Daniel sits, his shoulders stiff, while Claire hesitates, her eyes darting between us. She finally sinks into the chair, clutching her purse like it's a shield. I can feel their unease, the way they're trying to read the room, to figure out how much trouble they're in. They don't know yet, but they will soon. I think back to a moment in 2005 when Daniel was 26 and home for Christmas. He'd just started his job in Seattle, full of big talk about skyscrapers and deals. We were in the orchard, the trees bare under a grey sky, and he promised he'd come back one day to help run the place. "I'll make you and Dad proud." "Mom," he said, his breath clouding in the cold. I believed him, my heart swelling with hope. Now, sitting across from him, I see no trace of that boy, only a man who let greed and a woman's whispers turn him against his own mother. Henry clears his throat, sliding a folder across the table. "Let's get to it. This is the real will, signed by James Hawthorne, leaving the Hawthorne family farms, the farmhouse, and all associated assets to Eleanor. The document you presented, claiming James left everything to you, is a forgery. I can prove it, and so can the notary who witnessed the original." Claire's face pales, her fingers tightening on her purse. Daniel shifts, his jaw clenching, but he doesn't speak. I keep my eyes on them, my voice steady when I finally break the silence. "You thought you could take it all, didn't you? The orchard, the house, everything James and I worked 40 years for. You thought I'd just step aside, Mom." Daniel starts, his voice low. "It's not like that. We were trying to help." "Help?" I cut him off, my tone sharp but controlled. "You left me on a road with a suitcase. Daniel, you and Claire decided I was an inconvenience, so you tossed me out like yesterday's news. That's not help, that's betrayal." Claire's eyes fill with tears, but I've seen her cry before. At James's funeral, when she thought the neighbors were watching. "Ellie, I'm so sorry," she says, her voice trembling. "It was a mistake. Daniel made me go along with it. I didn't want to stop it." "Claire," Daniel snaps, turning to her, "don't pin this on me. You're the one who kept pushing, saying we needed the money for your debts, your brand." I watch them turn on each other, and it should feel satisfying, but it doesn't. It just hurts. A deep, aching hurt that comes from seeing the family I loved fall apart. I think of James, of the way he'd sit in his rocking chair on the porch, watching the orchard bloom, and I know he'd be heartbroken to see this. But he'd also tell me to stand tall, to protect what we built. So I do. "Enough," I say, my voice cutting through their bickering. "This isn't about who said what. It's about what you did. You forged a will, tried to sell the orchard to Cascade Resorts, and left me on County Road 14 to keep me quiet. But you forgot one thing: I'm not as weak as you think. I've spent my life nurturing this land, and I know how to fight for it." Henry slides another document forward, his tone all business. "This is an agreement. You both sign, renouncing any claim to the orchard, the house, and all assets. In return, Ellie has agreed not to press charges for fraud, attempted theft, and elder abuse charges that could land you in serious trouble, given the evidence we've gathered." Daniel's face goes ashen, his hands gripping the table. "Elder abuse, Mom. You can't be serious. You'd really do that to your own son." I meet his eyes, searching for the boy I raised, the one who used to run through the orchard with a grin as wide as the sky. He's not there, not anymore. The mother who'd have forgiven you anything died on that road. "Daniel," I say, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. "You made your choice, now I'm making mine." Claire's tears spill over, her voice a desperate whisper. "Ellie, please. I know we messed up. I was drowning in debt, my business, the loans, everything. I thought the sale would fix it, I didn't mean for it to go this far. I look at her, at the woman who called my home rustic like it was an insult, who smiled while planning to take it all away. Part of me wants to believe her, to see the girl Daniel fell in love with, but the memory of that gravel road is too raw. You meant every step, Claire, I say. You planned it, both of you, but I'm giving you a way out. Sign the papers, leave Willow Creek, and I won't take this to the district attorney. That's more than you gave me. Thomas speaks up, his voice calm but commanding. Cascade Resorts is pulling out. They know about the forged will, and they've seen Laura Bennett's article in the Willow Creek Chronicle. It's going viral, exposing their history of strong-arming vulnerable landowners. They won't touch this deal now, not with the spotlight on them. Claire's shoulders slump, her face crumpling. My article, she whispers, like she's just realized the world she built on lies is collapsing. Daniel stares at the papers, his hands shaking. This says we lose everything, he says, his voice hollow. The inheritance, the orchard, all of it. Yes, I say simply. Just like you tried to take everything from me. The difference is, I'm giving you a choice. Sign, or face the consequences. The room falls silent, the only sound the faint tick of Henry's desk clock. I think back to a night in 1980 when James and I sat in our kitchen, the orchard, still a dream, taking shape. We'd just gotten a loan to buy more trees, and I was scared we'd fail, scared we'd lose everything. James took my hand and said, Ellie, we're not just growing pears, we're growing a legacy. No matter what, we'll protect it. I'm keeping that promise now, even if it means letting go of the son I thought I knew. Daniel reaches for the pen first, his movement slow, like he's signing away a piece of himself. His signature is shaky, but it's there. Claire takes longer, her tears dripping onto the paper, smudging the ink. She looks at me, her eyes pleading, but I hold her gaze, unyielding. She signs, her hand trembling, and pushes the papers back across the table. What happens now, she asks, her voice small, like a child caught in a storm she didn't see coming. Now you leave, I say, gathering the documents. Both of you, today. If I see you in Willow Creek again, I'll press charges. No matter what you've signed, the orchard is mine, and it's staying that way. Daniel stands, his face a mask of defeat, and Claire follows, clutching her purse like it's all she has left. They walk out without a word, the door closing softly behind them. I watch through the window as they head to their cars, Daniel to his rent-tel, Claire to her flashy red convertible, a gift from James she never deserved. They don't look back, don't look at each other, and I feel a pang of sorrow, not for them, but for the family we might have been. Henry places a hand on my shoulder. It's done. Ellie, you got your orchard back. I nod, but the victory feels hollow, like a harvest after a frost. I've won. But at what cost, I think of James, of the way he'd hold me on the porch, his arms strong and sure, and I wonder what he'd say now. Would he be proud? Or would he grieve for the son we lost? I don't know. But I know I did what I had to do. Thomas gathers his papers, his voice gentle. You're a force, Ellie. James would have been proud. I manage a small smile. He'd have said I was too stubborn for my own good. Henry chuckles, but his eyes are serious. What's next? Ellie, you've got the orchard, the house. What do you want to do with it? I look out the window, at the town I've called home for 40 years, at the orchard blooming just beyond the horizon. I want to keep it alive. I say not just for me, but for Willow Creek, for the kids who'll grow up here, for the future James and I dreamed of. That night, I drive back to the farmhouse, the familiar crunch of gravel under my tires, a comfort after days of chaos. Maggie insisted on coming with me, but I told her I needed to do this alone. The house is quiet, the kitchen dark, but it's still home. I light a candle, the soft glow flickering across the oak table, and sit in James's rocking chair on the porch. The orchard stretches out before me, the trees silhouetted against a starlit sky, their branches whispering in the breeze. I pull the scarf tighter around my shoulders, the scent of James's aftershave faint but present. I think about Daniel and Claire, about the choices they made, the bridges they burned. I think about the letter James wrote for them, tucked away in my dresser, full of love and disappointment I'm not ready to share. I've forgiven them, in a way not for their sake, but for mine, to lighten the load on my heart. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean letting them back in. The orchard is safe, but this fight has changed me. I'm not just Ellie, the widow, the mother, the farmer. I'm a woman who stood up when the world tried to knock her down, who found strength in the roots she's nurtured all these years. I close my eyes, letting the night air wash over me, and I know this isn't the end. It's a beginning, a chance to build something new, something true. The summer sun hangs low over Willow Creek, painting the pear orchard in shades of gold and green. I'm standing in the middle of Hawthorne family farms, my hands resting on the rough bark of a tree James and I planted back in 1980. The air is warm, sweet with the scent of ripening fruit, and the hum of bees fills the quiet spaces. It's been 3 months since that day in Henry Caldwell's office. 3 months since Daniel and Claire signed away their claim to the orchard and walked out of my life. The victory was hard won, but it left a hollow place in my heart, a space where my son and his wife used to be. Today, though, that hollow is starting to fill not with them, but with something new, something I'm building for myself and this town I call home. I walk through the rows of trees, my flat sinking slightly into the soft earth, and I feel the orchard breathing with me. This land has seen me through 40 years of joy and sorrow. From the day James and I first broke ground to the night I sat alone after his funeral, wondering how to go on. It's seen me through betrayal, too, through the moment my own son drove away and left me on County Road 14. But it's still here, still blooming. And so am I. I'm Eleanor Marie Hawthorne, 70 years old, and I'm learning that a woman's strength doesn't fade with age, it grows, like roots reaching deeper with every season. The farmhouse is bustling today, a far cry from the silent nights I spent here after James passed. I've hired Lisa Adams, the daughter of my old friend Martin, to help manage the orchard. She's 25, with a quick smile and a knack for numbers that reminds me of myself at that age. She's out in the barn now, organizing supplies for the new project that's got the whole town talking a community agriculture center, a place where kids can learn to grow food, where families can gather, where the legacy of this orchard will live on. I can hear her laughing with a couple of the Wilson boys, who've signed on for the summer, their voices carrying through the open barn doors. I head back to the house, the porch creaking under my steps, and pause at James's rocking chair. It's still here, just as he left it, the wood worn smooth by years of his hands. I run my fingers over the armrest, feeling him in the grain, in the way the chair sways gently when I touch it. I think back to a night in 1978 when we sat on this porch. Newlyweds with a mortgage we couldn't afford, and a dream bigger than both of us. The orchard was just a patch of dirt then, but James looked at me, his eyes bright in the moonlight, and said, "Ellie, we're not just planting trees, we're planting a future." I'm keeping that promise now, even if it's not the future I imagined. Inside, the kitchen smells of fresh coffee and the apple pie I baked this morning. The oak table is covered with plans for the community centre sketches of raised garden beds, schedules for workshops, budgets. Lisa helped me crunch. I pour a cup of coffee and sit, the warmth of the mug grounding me as I flip through the pages. This centre is more than a project, it's a way to give back, to make sure the orchard isn't just mine, but belongs to Willow Creek, to the kids who'll grow up here, to the families who'll come after me. It's a way to heal, too, to fill the emptiness left by Daniel and Claire with something good. Maggie Olson stops by around noon, her pickup rattling into the driveway. She's carrying a basket of her famous cinnamon rolls, still warm from the oven at the Rusty Spoon. "Ellie, you're going to work yourself into the ground," she says, setting the basket on the table. "When's the last time you took a break?" I smile, pushing a roll toward her. "I'll rest when the centre's up and running. Maggie. Besides, this work, it's keeping me going." She sits, her grey curls catching the sunlight through the window. "You've done something amazing, honey. This town's buzzing about the centre. Laura's even writing a follow-up story for the Chronicle, says it's going national." I shake my head, a little embarrassed. Laura Bennett's first article, the one that exposed Cascade Resorts and their shady tactics, went further than any of us expected. It hit the front page of the Willow Creek Chronicle, then got picked up by papers in Portland and Seattle. People read about how Daniel and Claire tried to sell the orchard with a forged will, how they left me on that road, and how this town rallied to save what we built. The backlash was swift. Cascade pulled out, their CEO facing investigations for similar schemes across 3 states. I don't take pleasure in their downfall, but there's a quiet satisfaction in knowing justice was served. Maggie leans forward, her voice soft. "Have you heard from them, Daniel or Claire?" I pause, my fingers tightening around the mug. Claire's been sending texts, one every few weeks, her words dripping with regret. "Ellie, I'm so sorry. I was desperate. Can we talk?" I delete them without replying. Not out of anger, but because I've learned some wounds don't heal with words. Daniel hasn't reached out at all, and maybe that hurts more. I keep James's letter to them, written in his final days, locked in my dresser. It's full of love, but also disappointment, a father's hope that his son would find his way. I'll send it some day, when I'm ready, but not yet. "No," I say finally, and I'm okay with that. "Maggie, I've forgiven them, in my own way, not for them, but for me. I don't want to carry that weight anymore." Maggie nods, her eyes warm with understanding. "You're stronger than I'll ever be, Ellie. But don't shut the door completely." "Okay." You never know. I don't answer. Just sip my coffee and let the moment pass. Maggie means well, but she doesn't know what it's like to stand on that road, to feel your family slip away like sand through your fingers. I've made my peace, or as close to peace as I can get. The orchard is my family now, along with this town, these people who've stood by me when I needed them most. That afternoon, I drive to the community centre site, a cleared patch near the barn where we've started building. Lisa's there, directing a group of volunteers, Ray Miller, the Wilson boys, even Pastor Williams, who's traded his collar for a flannel shirt. The frame of the main building is up, wooden beams glowing in the sunlight, and I feel a swell of pride. This is what James would have wanted, a place where the orchard's legacy lives on, not in dollars, but in laughter, learning, and love. Lisa waves me over, her clipboard tucked under her arm. "Ellie, you've got to see this," she says, her eyes bright. "The kids from the elementary school sent drawings for the garden beds. They want a butterfly garden." I laugh, the sound surprising me. "A butterfly garden? Huh? Well, we'll make it happen." "Anything else?" she grins. "They also want a tire swing. I told them we'd talk to you first." "Put it on the list," I say, patting her shoulder. "You're doing good work, Lisa. James would have liked you." She blushes, ducking her head. "Thanks, Ellie. This place, it's special. I can feel it." I nod, looking out at the volunteers, at the orchard stretching beyond them. It is special, not just because of the trees, but because of what it stands for. I think back to a morning in 1985 when James and I stood in this same spot, watching the first pears ripen. We were exhausted, broke, and happier than we'd ever been. "This is ours." "Ellie," he said, his arm around me. "No matter what comes, this is ours. I'm holding on to that now, building something that will outlast me, that will carry his name into the future." By evening, I'm back at the farmhouse, the kitchen glowing with candlelight. I've invited Maggie, Laura, and Henry over for dinner. A small thank you for everything they've done. The table is set with my grandmother's china, the air rich with the smell of a roasted chicken and apple pie. It's the kind of meal James loved, the kind we'd share after a long day in the orchard, laughing over stories and dreams. Laura raises her glass of iced tea, her smile wide. "To Ellie," she says, "the toughest woman I know, and the heart of Willow Creek." I blush, waving her off. "To all of you," I say, my voice catching. "I couldn't have done this without you. This orchard, this center, it's not just mine. It's ours." Henry chuckles, his eyes crinkling. "James always said you were a force." "Ellie, he wasn't wrong." We eat, the conversation flowing easily, and for the first time in months, I feel whole, not healed, not completely, but whole, like a tree that's weathered a storm and found its roots still strong. I think about the letter I wrote to James last night, tucked away in my journal. Words I'll never send but needed to say. "I'm doing it. James," I wrote, "the orchard's safe, and I'm building something new. I miss you, but I'm okay. I'm living for both of us." After dinner, I step onto the porch, the night air cool against my skin. The orchard is a sea of shadows, the trees swaying gently under a crescent moon. I sit in James's rocking chair, the scarf around my shoulders, and let the quiet settle over me. The loneliness is still there, a soft ache that may never leave, but it's not all I am. I'm a woman who stood up, who fought, who found a way to love herself again. I'm a woman who's planting new seeds, not just in the earth, but in her heart. The stars are out tonight, scattered across the Oregon sky like diamonds on a velvet cloth. I'm sitting in James's rocking chair on the porch of our farmhouse, the familiar creak of the wood a quiet comfort as I sway gently. The air is warm, carrying the sweet scent of late summer pears from the Hawthorne family farms. The orchard that's been my home, my heart, for over 40 years. It's been 6 months since that day on County Road 14 when Daniel and Claire drove away, leaving me with a suitcase and a broken trust. 6 months since I fought to save this land, this legacy, from their greed and a forged will. The battle is over, the orchard is mine, but the victory came with a cost, a son I no longer know, a daughter-in-law whose apologies I can't accept. Yet, as I sit here, watching the pear trees sway under the moonlight, I feel something new peace, not perfect, but real, like the first bloom after a long winter. The farmhouse is quiet tonight, the kitchen dark except for a single candle flickering on the oak table. I lit it earlier, after dinner, when I sat down to write in my journal, something I've done more often since James passed. The words come easier now, a way to make sense of the pain, the strength, the woman I've become. I wrote about the orchard, about the community center that's taken shape over these past months, about the kids who run through the trees, their laughter echoing like music. I wrote about James, about how I miss him every day, but also about how I'm learning to live for myself, not just for him or the family I thought I had. At 70, I'm finding that life doesn't end when the people you love let you down. It begins again. If you let it. I think back to a night in 1990 when James and I sat right here. The orchard glowing under a full moon. We'd just had our best harvest yet. The barn overflowing with pears, and we were dreaming about the future. James took my hand, his calloused fingers warm against mine, and said, "Ellie, you're my fire. No matter what comes, you'll keep burning bright." I didn't know then what he meant. Not really, but I do now. That fire kept me walking those 4 miles to Miller's Gas and Grocery, kept me fighting in Henry Caldwell's office, kept me planting new seeds when I thought I had nothing left. It's a fire that comes from loving yourself, from knowing you're worth fighting for, no matter your age or the scars you carry. The community centre opened last week, a dream made real with the help of this town, Willow Creek, the place that's held me up when I couldn't stand alone. The main building is simple, just wooden beams and big windows, but it's alive with possibility. Kids from the elementary school planted a butterfly garden, their small hands digging in the dirt, while Lisa Adams, my new manager, hung a tire swing from an old oak. We held our first workshop yesterday, teaching families how to grow their own vegetables, and I stood there, watching mothers and children laugh together, feeling a warmth I hadn't known in months. This is what James and I always wanted, not just an orchard, but a place where people could grow, too. Maggie Olson was there, of course, passing out her cinnamon rolls and teasing me about working too hard. "Ellie, you're gonna outlive us all," she said, her grey curls bouncing as she laughed. "This centre's your legacy. Honey, you've done James proud." I smiled, brushing flour off her apron. "It's our legacy. Maggie, all of us. I just got it started." Laura Bennett came too, her notebook swapped for a camera as she snapped photos for the Willow Creek Chronicle. Her article about the orchard fight went further than we ever imagined, sparking investigations that brought down Cascade Resort's shady empire. She's writing a new piece now, about the center, about how a town came together to save something precious. "Ellie," she said, adjusting her lens, "you're an inspiration. People need to hear your story." I shook my head, embarrassed. "I'm just a farmer." "Laura, I did what I had to do." "No," she said, her eyes serious. "You're a woman who stood up when the world tried to knock her down. That's a story worth telling." Her words stayed with me, settling into that hollow place where Daniel and Claire used to be. I haven't heard from them in weeks. Claire's text stopped after I ignored the last one. A long plea about losing her condo and her brand. Daniel's silence is louder, a void that cuts deeper than I like to admit. I keep James's letter to them in my dresser, locked away with the scarf he gave me. It's a father's words, full of love but also truth, calling them to be better than they've been. I'll send it someday, when the time feels right. But for now, I'm letting go not of them, but of the guilt, the need to fix what they broke. I've forgiven them, not because they deserve it, but because I deserve to be free. This morning, I drove to the orchard early, before the sun was up, to check the trees. The pears are nearly ready for harvest, their skins golden and heavy with sweetness. I walked the rows, my hands brushing the leaves, and felt James with me, not as a ghost, but as a part of this land, these roots. I thought about the day we planted our first tree, back in 1978 when I was 23 and scared we'd fail. James knelt in the dirt, his hand steady as he patted the soil, and said, "Ellie, this tree's gonna outlive us. It's our promise to the world. I'm keeping that promise now, not just for him, but for me. For the woman who's learning to love herself again." Back at the farmhouse, I pull out my journal, the pages filled with months of thoughts, plans, and dreams. I write about the centre, about the scholarship fund I've started in James's name, helping local kids study sustainable farming. I write about Maggie, who's teaching a baking class at the centre next week, and Laura, who's planning a storytelling night for the town to share their own histories. I write about Lisa, who's become like a daughter, her energy breathing new life into the orchard. And I write about myself, about the woman I didn't know I could be until I had to be. The kitchen is warm, the smell of coffee lingering from breakfast. I light another candle, its soft glow dancing across the oak table, and open the drawer where I keep James's letter. I don't read it, not tonight. Instead, I take out a new sheet of paper and start writing. Not to him, but to myself. Ellie. I begin. You've carried so much, but you're still here, still growing. You're enough, just as you are. The words feel strange, like a language I'm learning, but they're true. I'm enough, and I'm allowed to live for me. The Harvest Festival is tomorrow, the first since the centre opened, and the town's buzzing with excitement. I've spent the day with Lisa, setting up tables, stringing lights, and stacking baskets of pears for the kids to take home. Ray Miller's bringing his guitar, Maggie's baking pies, and Pastor Williams is leading a blessing before we eat. It's the kind of day James loved. When Willow Creek comes together like a big, messy family, I'll stand in the orchard, watching the kids run through the trees, and I'll know this is what we built. What I've saved, what I'm passing on. As the sun sets, I step onto the porch, the rocking chair creaking under me. The orchard is a sea of shadows, the pears glowing faintly in the dusk. I pull the scarf around my shoulders, its wool soft against my skin, and let the quiet wrap around me. The loneliness is still there, a soft ache that may never fade. But it's not all I am. I'm a woman who fought for her home, who found strength in her roots, who learned to love herself when the world tried to tell her she wasn't enough. I'm a woman who's planting new seeds, not just in the earth, but in her heart. I think about you, reading this story, maybe sitting in your own kitchen, maybe wondering if you're enough. I want to tell you what I've learned, what these 6 months have taught me. Life can break you, but it can't take your fire. You are worth fighting for, worth loving, worth living for. No matter your age or the battles you've faced, hold on to your roots, find your people, and don't be afraid to bloom again. That's what I'm doing, one pear at a time, one day at a time. The stars are brighter now, the night alive with crickets and the rustle of leaves. I close my eyes, letting James's voice carry me. Ellie, you're my fire. I smile, knowing he'd be proud, knowing I'm proud. The pear trees are still blooming, and so am I. Thank you for walking this journey with me, for sitting on this porch and listening to my story. I'd love to hear yours. What's kept you going through your own hard seasons? Share it in the comments below. And let's keep this conversation alive. Hit that subscribe button to join me for more stories of strength and hope, because every one of us has a tree worth growing. Until next time, keep blooming.